God. We're going to start in 1 minute, ladies and gentlemen. Start. When it's blinking, it's off. It's on. It's 5 o'clock. Dame la pausa.
Good afternoon, school board, Dr. Hernandez and district staff. The time is 5 p.m. on May 30th, 2023, and I call this board workshop meeting of the Edgewood Independent School District School Board to order. Let me begin with roll call. Dr. James Hernandez.
Present.
Mr. Joseph Guerra.
Present.
Mr. Frank Espinosa is on his way. Mr. Luis Gomez.
Present.
Mr. Michael Valdez.
Here.
Mr. Richard Santoyo.
Here.
And I, Martha Castilla, President. Let the record show that a quorum of the Edgewood Independent School District School Board is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and the notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag and the Texas flag, and then for a moment in silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Do we have any communication from citizens?
Madam President, we do have one communication from citizens.
We have Ms. Leticia Barbosa.
You go, Lily. You don't mind standing? Because they don't have
Good afternoon. My name is Leticia Barbosa. I think I just calculated that I've been teaching for 24 years. Most of that time, 20 of those years, I'm about to complete my 20th year, I think, have been here in the district. I represent the Teachers Union, the Edgewood Classroom Teachers Association. And I'm here to, first of all, say thank you for the work that you're doing as board members, and to the district admin team. I know that I have not personally been able to come to these meetings as often as I would like this year because I have been busy in the classroom as a third grade teacher at Roosevelt. But I did want to come out today before the year ended, because I usually try to come at the beginning and the end. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about the item G on your agenda. And share some statistics that I pulled, or that we pulled off of TEA's website. I know today that when you discuss the budget, you have planned on providing a 3% salary, or a 3% increase on the teacher salary, and I want to say thank you for that. But what I did want to bring to your attention is that there is still a gap for some teachers in the district, and I'd like for you to consider that information tonight. Teachers who or some statistics. There are about 88 teachers in the district right now that are first-year teachers, and 122 that have 1 to 5 years of experience. That's about 58% of our professional staff right now. They have less than 10 years experience. There's about 16% of the teachers that, like me, have 20 or more experience, 20 more years of experience. And when you look at the data for the entire county, there are, out of the 10 districts, I think we fall at number 8. So you end up losing a lot of your veteran staff. And research shows that students they thrive in the classroom with veteran teachers. What I've noticed through the years that I've been here is that our turnover rate is extremely high. It has always been well above the state average. My request to you is so that we can stop losing those veteran teachers to other districts, is that you consider a 4% raise off the salary for about 16% of your staff, for those veteran teachers that have 21 or more years of experience. This will actually bring you to be somewhat level and at an equal playing field to the rest of the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Libby. Thank you.
Sir, do you have a report first?
Yes, ma'am.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Joe, if we can go ahead and set that, please. All right, so good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to, God, I feel like I'm out. So welcome to our board workshop for the month of June. I know we are still in May 3rd, on May 30th date, but as I've been discussing with you guys over the last 5 months, the May 30th date we would use as our workshop to prepare for the eventual adoption of the budget, which is 1 week from tonight, June 7th. And so I do want to start by thanking our visitors and for their advocacy as always. I think we're all working to support the classroom. But as always, I like to tell, just to use pictures to tell the story. This is from our superintendent's banquet. Thank you to this team, the senior leadership team, Ms. Olga, and the board also for participating in that evening. We got a lot of great feedback back from our parents who participated that evening. So thank you to everybody who had anything to do with this. As always, these meetings are created to continuously discuss how we're supporting our Vision 2028, making sure that our 5 priorities for the district are in place. I won't read those to you because you see them there, but the goal still remains the same regardless of what comes at us, is that we prepare all students to be college, career, military ready for their expected date of graduation. And that we do it following our 3 core values: to remain professional, accountable, and communicate as much information as we can in terms of transparency. The goal continues to be to make sure that we are working through our $96 million budget. In fact, tonight, you're going to hear the recommendation for this year's 2023-2024 budget. And so you'll hear from our team now having had a discussion multiple times on this subject over the last 5 months. The goal, as I mentioned before, continues to be to make sure that we have 6 or better Bs this school year in terms of our schools and their accreditation. So you're going to hear information on the accountability system here in the next few weeks, because that information is still pouring in from our friends at the agency, the Texas Education Agency, and we are going to be working with you, board, on beginning to understand what that information looks like. In fact, you're going to see some dates here in a little bit for a performance plan meeting that we are suggesting that we have later this month, but I'll share that at the end. And so tonight's workshop is our first conversation, as I mentioned, towards the finalization of the budget adoption as best as we can. And I say that because obviously the legislative session is still meeting. In fact, yesterday was their last day. The governor immediately called a special session today. It started, I believe, around noon today. And so on that agenda are 2 things, property values, and Ms. Olga, help me with the second one.
The border security.
And border security. Those are the 2 items. The school basic allotment, safety, security, and pay raises, it is our understanding, do not look like they're coming up until September. I have my opinion on that, but I'll wait till I get to that later. But again, 1 week from tonight, we will be in our board meeting, and that will be our board adoption night. Just to kind of give you a visual on what's happening for the rest of the month, board members, we are about to start our 4-day work week, and so that starts next week, but obviously there's a lot going on between now and then. We have graduations that start next week. Learn for Life's on Monday during the day. We have our board meeting. We have Memorial and JFK's graduation, as well as the academy on the 9th. We have the district begins to be closed on those days. Most of the district will be closed. We'll have some offices open. But our week will end on that Thursday. And then, of course, I asked them maybe to circle the 8th specifically because we don't normally have a board update on the Friday after a regular board meeting, but we are going to have one this month because obviously there is a lot going on and we want to make sure that we get as much information out to you guys each month. As always, as we prepare for our discussion this evening, I do want to remind you, board members and staff, that our operating norms stay the same. I won't read those to you, you see those there. But the idea is to continue to better inform ourselves as we make the best decision possible when it comes to our adoption of the budget this month or any month if we're discussing any particular one item on that month's agenda. As was discussed last month during the workshop, I believe most of you were here. I wasn't here because I think that was the day that I got sick. The protocol today is that we make sure that we allow our presenters to present, and you will see an item that looks a little like this. It might not be that particular item, it may be ahead with the speedy loading, but it is going to be what we call process time. We'll give you an opportunity to visit with your learning partners at your table. Everybody has a learning partner. You have one there with you, and you can start your questions there, and then of course we'll move on from there. The last part being, if you have other questions, you will put those on the cards, and then we will respond to those questions and put them in the board update. So for tonight's presentation, the SLT is presenting. First, you'll hear from our Deputy Superintendent and our Assistant Superintendent of Academics in terms of a few items that they have coming up for your support in terms of the meeting next week. And then you will hear from our business operations team, all the individuals listed here, in terms of the items that are coming up for adoption next week. This is going to be a lengthy conversation, as I mentioned before. We've been visiting with you now for over 4 or 5 months about the adoption of the budget. And so again, Ms. Begley and everybody else will be presenting tonight. So please save your questions for then, and of course write them down for us as well. One of the other items that is not listed in one of those areas is the board agenda minutes. We do have those approved for you guys every month, the month after. So this falls in my office with Ms. Castillo and then of course Ms. Maculas, as you see there. As I mentioned before, so as we move forward to our conversations, write down your questions, send any additional questions to my office, to the superintendent's office, to Amelia and Ms. Castillo. Make sure you review the board workshop video. That's the video that is being taken out, because that is online, and you do get a board update. And then you'll get a board update this Friday on the 2nd. So remember, those are going to be your next steps in terms of continuing to inform yourself. For the month of June, that's just a sample of items that are potentially coming up in the meeting next week. Those are items that are coming up for consideration. And then, of course, on June 26th, give or take a day, the 26th or 27th, we are considering asking for a board performance planning meeting. We have 2 major items. We're going to continue to talk about the adopted, that one will be the adopted budget with your support. And then we're also going to talk about accountability. There's a lot of information that is coming out from the agency in terms of student scores and new terminology that, quite frankly, is new to us. It is brand new to the entire state, but we are continuing to understand it. We're going to bring it to you that day. And of course, with the budget, anything can happen this month. So if we see anything come out of the legislative session, this is going to be an opportunity for us to talk to you about it. So that'll be on the 26th or 27th. I'll send that information out to Ms. Castillo. And then the last thing is, do not forget our graduations. Our graduations are on June the 5th for Learn for Life. We have June the 6th, the board meeting and budget adoption, as I mentioned before. June the 7th is Memorial's graduation. June the 8th, JFK's graduation, and then June the 9th, Fine Arts Academy's graduation. Yes, sir.
I have a question. Why did you put the protocol of talking to your table partner when we stop after an item?
So that is an opportunity for each table to process whatever information was given out. I believe last month, I don't have it in front of me. We used a different logo, but this is an opportunity to take poignant times during the conversation so that individuals can ask questions, because there is a lot of information that's coming out. Yes, sir.
But some of the questions pertaining to specific individuals or individuals that submitted the item to be posted, like some of the people in my partner are not members of the finance team.
So if you pose a question as a team, the senior leadership team discusses these things before we come to this actual meeting. So there's a lot of questions that can be answered by the members of your table. And then, of course, there's the individuals that are presenting as well, because we'll elevate some of those questions. And then after that, if there's questions that can be written on the cards, then we will answer and put them in the board update as we always do for everybody. Yes, sir.
I mean, that doesn't really make sense, because like
So the questions that, whatever gets answered here is posted online. Anybody can actually do that. So there's questions there. Then of course we have these presentations. I think one of our individuals just came. This is open to anybody in Edgewood, anybody in the city that wants to take the time to come visit. At some point, the other party also needs to make the time to come and visit and hear on those items. So that would be my question to that. For our purposes today, I think the opportunity is given so that individuals have time to process the copious amount of information that's being sent to you. And so that's the protocol we're going to be using as we move forward with our meetings. We were actually using this protocol, I want to say right before the update, not the update, right before the pandemic hit. That was the protocol that we've been using for years. So we got away from it, and now we're bringing it back because we feel like it allows individuals to get a deeper understanding of the items that are being voted on.
I don't feel like it's very effective because 2, 3, 4 workshops ago, it was really, really effective because everyone answered the questions that pertain to their specific thing that they're like focused on. So having a meeting and writing it down, like it doesn't make sense. Like I might as well just kind of like send my questions to you before. Like I don't think there's a point of a board workshop if we're not going to be able to talk to people directly related to the item.
So you can send me those questions before, but this is the protocol we're going to use. I appreciate your advice, but this is the protocol we're going to use. So if you send it to us, we'll answer it, we'll put it in the board update as we always do, and that's the protocol we're going to use as we move forward. But I do appreciate your honesty and feedback. I think every table is given an opportunity to ask their individual questions so that we have more individuals asking questions, and if we feel there's something that needs to be elevated, we'll elevate it, and we collect those and then we put them in the board update. But I appreciate your honesty with it. That's what we're going to do moving forward.
No one else can see the board update for the school board.
Correct. That is just for the school board, but the video is open to the general public. Correct.
General public cannot hear our little conversations in each table.
Again, I think that if the general public would like to come, they could come to the meeting. I mean, at some point, there is also a responsibility on the receiving side. But again, I appreciate your honesty. This is what we're going to do moving forward.
But you said it's protocol, but it's not policy. So if I have a question to the whole group, can I do that?
You can go ahead and write the question down. We'll start at the table and we'll move on. But I don't want to be late because there's other people also here. So that's the protocol we're going to use. But you and I can have that discussion afterwards, Mr. Valdez, if you'd like.
We don't need the discussion we're having it right now.
Okay. But I'm going to go ahead and move forward because there's other individuals here too, and I want to respect them too. So as I mentioned, guys, this is the closing of my superintendent's report. This is for the International Boys Day at the Cisneros Elementary School, Leadership School for Boys. I just wanted you to see that picture because this is from that day. And then I want to close out just by giving you a few updates that what just came out of the legislative session. So I'm glad to see Olga coming back in because Olga is the actual person that attends these. But I want to update you on House Bill 1 that was approved here, was it yesterday or just yesterday?
It was approved, well, it was approved over the weekend.
Okay, so it's probably not new to you because it's been out there, but House Bill 1 did not go through. So there is no money right now in terms of
House
the
Bill 100 didn't go through.
House Bill 100, I'm sorry. There is no increase to the student basic allotment. There was $50 that we put it on the table, but those have been removed now. So there is no money right now that we are expecting on the basic allotment. And so right now we're waiting on a legislative session, and we believe that the special session is going to be called in September. That's the only information that we have at this time. But there's nothing coming in House in terms of student allotment, teacher raises. There's nothing coming at this point. So we're going to wait until that money, until we hear more. There, House Bill 3. Let me see. All that's notes. So this is the one on safety. So this is what I want you to consider, board members, as we're having this discussion today. So House Bill 3 is going to mandate that we have an armed individual on each one of our campuses. Now that is an unfunded mandate. I'm going to say that again. That is an unfunded mandate. The only thing we're getting right now is the basic allotment would be we would get $15,000 per campus. We still have to find out what they deem to be a campus for us. And then we get $10 per student. That's what we get. And so that has already been approved. It is actually moving on to the governor's desk, is my understanding. The governor will be signing that here shortly. But that is the recommendation that has been approved by both houses. So obviously, I know in talking to our folks internally, I think I was talking to our chief today, there's going to be a meeting among the chiefs of police here in our county in terms of what's the response going to be. let me not get your hopes up. The response is not, no, we don't accept this. We have to accept this. But what we have to take into consideration is that we're going to have to provide that. And there's still more rulings coming out in terms of how they iron out those details. But as of right now, this is going to be the expectation. We are going to make some internal moves in the district to meet that expectation as best we can. But I want to put this in real terms for you. Even if we had gotten the money that the state should be giving us, the pipeline of officers is very dry. There's not a lot of people that are entering the profession, and then the ones that are out there, we have counties and agencies around us that are paying, quite frankly, more than we are. And so the talent pool is really working against us. So again, this is going to come into play, but we will wait to see what we hear here in the next few months.
Sir, can we go back one slide?
Sure.
One.
And board members, remember, you will get this Friday too. I also have a printout for each one of you also on this, and I'll give it to you here in a little bit. The other one that also came out is that we also now have an opportunity through Senate Bill 763 now. This is something that the administration of every district is going to bring to their boards. I will tell you right now, I don't have enough details, but I don't see myself bringing this as a recommendation to the board. What we're hearing is that we would be allowed to bring in volunteer chaplains to our schools as opposed to actual school counselors. And so I'm going to leave that there, but that is something that also came out in this legislative session that is already headed to the governor's desk. And so I just need you to know about that, because now it does use the word volunteer, but nonetheless, again, I'm going to patiently wait and hear what does this look like. But I will cautiously say at this point, this is not probably something I'm going to be bringing for recommendation. I think we need counselors in our schools. We've already had numerous amounts of conversations around mental health and the importance of mental health, and I think I've talked to each one of you, or you each said one way or another that this is something important that we have to remember. So really that's it right now. That's all I have that's in concrete. As I said, as we mentioned before, the voucher bill looks like it's headed back in September. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's September, because most of you think about it, what's happening in September? We're back in school. Okay, so the audience that will probably be a lot louder on this issue will probably be in the classroom. But of course, we have other agencies and other groups that are going to be speaking up on behalf of school districts, and so I'm going to leave that there. And so that's it for my superintendent's report, Madam President. I'm going to turn it over to our next group. And so our next group is going to be Mr. Chavez and his group coming up. So let me turn it over to Mr. C.
Hello. There you go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Madam Chair, board members, Hernandez, colleagues, and people in the audience, community members, and staff. Today is our board presentation for, it says May, but it's for June. And I want to remind you all that we came to the board in April with 7 items, and last month we came to you about 13 items. So we've been coming quite a bit to try to get all these pieces prior to the board budget adoption. We have a few pieces. As we get started, I want to make sure we congratulate and think about our Teachers of the Year for this year. Second of all, Dr. Hernandez already went over the board priorities and strategic goals. And he's also gone over our vision and outcomes, priorities in the budget for 22-23. Our intended learning outcomes for today will include our Lone Star Governance monthly monitoring for May and June. If you recall, last month in May, we did not have all the end of year reading reports for grades K, first, second, and third, and informed you at the board workshop that we would be presenting them this month in conjunction with our June LSG, which is mathematics grades K, 1, 2, 3. We also have some good news regarding community and schools. We also have the Meadows Health Policy Institute coming up. They were at our SHAT meeting just past week. Did a very good job presenting out on all the services that they provide. And also we're in on the San Antonio Educational Partnership, initially established by Mayor Henry C. Sneddles back in the day. So Lone Star governance for May 2023. For these areas that we said our board monitoring calendar says we're covering the goal progress measures 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 for K, first and second grades, respectively. Here are the Lone Star outcomes. If you look at LSG Goal 1, this is based on third grade reading on the STAR. And as Dr. Hernandez said, we're going to have a presentation on this in the future, and we're also going to be having a conversation at the board meeting next week on what those outcomes look like. They're reported a little bit differently this year. It's not like it's always been, where they tell you whether you passed or did not pass. We have some uncertainties as they label some of these outcomes. That will be reporting to you at that time. And those particular scores for third grade reading, STAR, will not be available or official from the state until August. Goal progress measures 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 for reading. We utilize M-Class Amplify and Nivel for the Spanish component. So let's look at how we fared in kindergarten. Here's our goal progress measures in the yellow by the year. There's our beginning of the year, our middle of the year, and our end of year. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, our kindergartners met our 2027 goal of 52%. What that means is we're going to have to go in and look at those 5-year scores and have some other conversations to see what that looks like from 2023 forward. Grade 1 reading. We were kind of stagnant in the beginning of the year, went to 26, came down 1 point, but increased to 44% this last end of course. As you can see, we met our 2023 goal of 40% and 1 point shy of our 2-year goal of 45%. The next area is second grade reading. Our beginning of the year was at 32, and we kind of inched up a tad bit up to 34, and the end of the year was at 43%, passing our first and second year goal of 34 and 39%. So reinforcements, we're going to continue to focus on our Houghton Mifflin Park foundational skills routine. That is our Tier 1 instructional resource that the board approved. We're also going to continue to monitor the implementation of small group instruction using the M-Class and I-Station interventions. Also, our administration will focus on walkthroughs to ensure consistency with small group instruction and refine the areas of the coaching cycles for grades 2 and 3 on a 2-week cycle. We're also going to look at instructional coaches supporting Tier 1 instruction in foundational skills across the district. Based on the reports for grades K1 and 2, the superintendent evaluations labeled at proficient. We now have some time for discussion and sharing at this time. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to talk amongst the group, please do. I'm going to be roving around as I would in the classroom, see if there's any questions that people may have.
Questions?
Yeah. So, since we met this, are we gonna redo it? Since
We will, yeah, at some point. Yes, yes. So I think when we go to LSG training, that's the idea, is to one, remind the group what LSG's for, and then where do we end up with accountability this year, and then I think, yes, we're going to address those.
Yeah, we met them all, right?
By the end of first semester.
Okay.
They're free, right? Like, it's not one of the
Pero en la junta de las naciones vamos a platicar por temas de voy a dejar, pero sí lo voy a dejar. No sé si te pones en el plan.
a lot of these are biology, community systems, and
Okay.
so a lot of these things are things that are
There was a question about third grade. I want to reiterate my statement at the very beginning. Our goal one is third grade star reading. We have the results, but the results include uncertainty. And the state will not finalize those results until August. And that's all star grades 3 through 8. Tomorrow, though, we will receive the end of course results and not any uncertainties. These will be actual scores and whether or not they pass. Obviously, the state recognizes that students need to graduate, and therefore we need that. Can we move on? Any questions for this? Okay. Next is the June 23rd for Lone Star Governance, and this is mathematics and goal progress measures 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 for grades K, 1, and 2 respectively. And remember our third grade, right? If you look at the very top up there, it says Lone Star Governance Goal 2, it's for STAR. We don't have STAR third grade, but we do have the others. So let's take a look at these goal progress measure 2.1. We started off at the beginning of the year at 23%, inched up to 27%, and our end of year is at 36%. I didn't write this down, but I do want to tell you, this is NWEA math results. So at 36%, we beat our 2023 goals and shot 1 percentage point below our 2024 goal. That's kindergarten. First grade, we started off at 12%, went up 5 points to 17, and made a final uptick to 21%. And unfortunately, we fell 1 point below our 2023 goal, which was at 22%. Grade 2 mathematics. We started off at 5%, inched up to 8%, and came up to 17% at the end of the year, meeting our 2023 goal. So good news across the board for mathematics and reading. Again, we have the grade 1 math that we just fell 1 point short. Here, of course, we are looking at focusing on our STEM scopes, which is our Tier 1 resource that the board approved on foundations for HQIM. Let me define that for you. High quality instructional materials, which are the only materials that we buy, just to be sure. Hand to mind is listed. Monitor implementation of small group instruction using STEM scopes and Region 4 interventions, HQIM. You see that HQIM come up because, as you know, this year, our academics department received a grant from TEA to review mathematics programs. So those mathematics programs and the nomenclature that's being used, you'll see in these presentations. Campus administration walkthroughs, again, coaching cycles. We know that those areas that we want to focus on, those grade levels, we're upping the frequency to 2 weeks as opposed to monthly. And of course, supporting Tier 1 instruction. Okay, time for some more discussion at your table for mathematics.
You can see the one for that is right at.
That's what we asked.
Yeah, we're right at the bar, but also keep in mind, we have just they really bad at actually that's happening. So we're just gonna keep working through this. I mean, you heard what they did with the each of them on the other. I know where they're coming from. I think that the recognition is fair. But the money, they're going to change this year with the percentage, the raise. You're going to hear about it over there. Everybody not in the fund will recommend flat from the midpoint. For teachers, we're recommending 3% from the actual last year's salary.
Okay.
So there's some people.
All right, can we move
a
on?
little more for the years.
We did? Fantastic. I just want to say this, we started off this year recalibrating all of our LSG goals, and we used the last couple of years of data, plus 2019, to get the increments that are SMART goals, right? We want to make sure that they're achievable and they have a timeline to them. So all of our LSG goals follow the SMART protocol. All right, without further ado, I want to invite our Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Roberto Basuto, to come up and do the remaining pieces.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Hernandez, esteemed board members. Just 3 items for your consideration tonight. Number 1 is the community and schools. Good news is that predominantly we've offered it at JFK and at Memorial, and we're looking to expand services now at Fine Arts and at Brentwood. And so this is basically our community outreach program, provides services, outreach, and help with attendance and things of that nature, and reaching out towards our parents and families. Also to note, part of the $156,000 payment will be taken out of ARPA funding, which will be about $78,000 through a grant, so partial payment through ARPA. The next item is the Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute, and this is the San Antonio Mobile Mental Wellness Collaborative. And this is, as we know, mental health is a big and is a very important issue here in our community, and this is providing health services and really care providers for our students, to include bereavement and rise recovery. This one also has an ARPA grant tied to it. We use part of grants, $46,000, to help pay for the total of $124,500. The last item is the San Antonio Educational Partnership, known as SAPE agreement. As Mr. Chavez, this is something we've offered for many, many years. They have access to college readiness. They'll provide services for students to apply for FAFSA scholarships, access to the San Antonio Promise, making sure that our kids who qualify actually access and are able to take advantage of that. And then the SAPE, also the SAAP scholarship. And this will be offered at 3 high schools. Also wanted to add is that we're going to add an extra day of service. Typically, what happens at the 2 comprehensive high schools at JFK and Memorial, they go twice a week. And in the past, at Fine Arts, they only went once a month. With this new contract, they'll be going to Fine Arts twice a month. That's a change, which provides more services to the Fine Arts. And those are my 3 items. If there are any questions. By the way, esteemed board members, I do want to say this, I'm very proud of our elementary teachers. I know that the numbers speak for themselves, and it just took a lot of hard work, so I just want to publicly thank our teachers and our content coordinators who worked diligently for those results. So I just kind of wanted to name that because we're really proud of those kids to hit all those targets. And it's a good start. Any questions?
You said it's 75, but do you know what the other portion is?
Yes, on the CIS, if you wanted to know what the second portion would be, it's going to be the 289. No, it's not. It's actually 211, which is a Title I funds.
What about for the other 2 for the Meadows?
So the code is under Mr. Valdez. He wants to know what the other code is. It's the 289 code fund, and of course my finance team could probably tell me the 289, Title IV. It's 281. Yes, sir, 2.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Hernandez, community members, SLT. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chavez. So we have a packed agenda tonight. We're going to try to move along as best as we can with as much information as we can. You're pretty much going to hear from every team member. We have Mr. Williams, Ms. Bentley, Mr. Vino, and Mr. Greathouse presenting this evening. Different items that they'll go over here shortly. Dr. Hernandez and Mr. Chavez have already mentioned the board superintendent priorities. We will have a breakdown for the board by the time we adopt what this looks like. We'll put in the board update, what the new budget proposal looks like once we get a little bit better feel. We'll put it into the same format that we do every year so that we know exactly how much money we're investing in each one of the priorities moving forward. So again, we keep the focus on Vision 2028 and the #1 outcome of graduating our students college, career, and military ready by their expected graduation date. The whole budget is built around this premise. We've talked about this since February that we started our first board workshop, and we continue through even earlier today having discussions about how we're going to support these outcomes moving for the year. So Dr. Hernandez already went over the dynamics. There is a lot of information. We're going to try to stop and pause during the presentation so we have plenty of time to answer questions and to have activity at the table. We are already May 30th. We have one more week before we ask you to adopt the budget. Dr. Hernandez has already alluded to the fact that we have a lot of missing pieces still in legislative actions going through September. So those are some of the things that when we ask you for work performance planning meetings, those are some of the things and the considerations that we're working under so that we keep you as up to date as we can as soon as we get information. So just know that we are tentative right now, but as we move through, we will be bringing up more information through workshops, through work performance planning meetings, and through updates as we get that. And of course, on June 6th, on Tuesday, we will be asking to adopt a budget for the 23-24 academic year. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Williams so he can get us started.
Madam President, members of the board, staff, and stakeholders, good evening. The first item I have is item D. I have two. This comes from the Head Start group, Dr. Mary Baker. I'm sorry, this comes from the academics group, Assistant Superintendent Dr. Serto. And what we're doing, we're going to create and renovate the Emerald Fry Cafeteria and Media Center and make it more of a professional development center. And we're using Title I funds for the total that you see there to augment that space. The second item, this one actually comes from Dr. Mel Baker in the Head Start group. We're going to put a trike pad similar to the one that you see at Yelp and Morales. And so that being said, you see the funding amounts there. That's a 205, and Ms. Bentley is going to tell me what a 205 is.
That's Head Start.
Head Start, okay. Just being sure. I was going to say that, but just being sure. And so this comes under construction as an 81. And so you can see the dollar amount there. Any questions about either of those two pieces? Yes, sir.
I have a question on item number D. You say we're using Title I funds, but do you know what are Title I funds? Because I was reading there's like Part A, Part B, C.
I don't think I have that information.
I would say Part A.
And how are Title I funds like distributed? Because like the Title I funds I was reading, like some of them are they split up between campuses or the district just has access to the Title I funds?
Both. We take 30%. We take 30% for district initiatives, and 70% is divided up to the campuses.
Do you know if other districts do that same process, 30% and 70%?
I think it's pretty close.
Because the Title I funds, I thought they were really supposed to be used for like the students, directly impacting the students at the campuses.
They are, but like the 30% that goes to curriculum, they're buying resources for the campuses.
And for this audio visual room, like the equipment's not sufficient right now.
So I don't know if you've ever been to the Enterprise Center. We have a cafeteria, and that's like our largest room to house individuals there. The other one that we have is the media center. It's a media center, and that one you can typically have 20 people in there. And we have outdated equipment, and we can't hear each other, so this would be a way to make sure that all has one input. The idea is you can go in there, plug it in. Right now there's a bunch of wires, you don't even know which plug is which, and sometimes we're there trying to troubleshoot, trying to connect into the media center. In the cafeteria, there's not even a way to even have a meeting, so we have to get a mic with speakers and kind of yell, and then we don't even have a good way to project out. So we're trying to make it look like a good instructional place where we have teachers come in and get trained there, because that's our biggest facility where we can house at least 50 teachers. And we typically have a lot of functions there as well, but mostly it's for PD. We need to have a big space, so if I want to bring in, say, for example, all first grade teachers, I don't have a big space to train them all in one place. So we're trying to upgrade that. So that's the idea.
The media center, it's just like, I've been there like plenty of times, it's just like three projectors.
There are 2 different areas.
Yeah, so it looks nice, but I don't know if you've seen on the back, because it is nice, it looks nice, but the thing is, those are outdated. Matter of fact, those aren't even supposed to be, when they came and did the proposal, the actual projectors aren't even meant for that kind of projection.
Right.
Just, I think they took some classroom projections and just stuck them up there, number one. That's why you always have to turn off the lights, because it's not bright enough to project, number one. Number two, when you go back there, you want to project out your PowerPoint or anything like that, and your sound system, it doesn't work sometimes. Why? You go back there and there's like a bunch of wires sticking out, and it has an old sound system, and we don't know how to, it's probably outdated, it needs to be replaced. So all that needs to be rewired, so when the person comes, they just plug in with the HDMI cord, and they're ready to go. The sound system doesn't even work. For some reason, we can't even project out into the speakers. We don't know why, and we've asked people to come in, so it's just time to replace all of it. If that makes any sense. I think the other upgrade we wanted to do was also have mics at each of the tables, so when we're speaking now, people can hear. And so we'll have like these portable mics that come, and they'll be attached wirelessly, so you can hear through those speakers as well. That was another thing that we're trying to upgrade.
Sir, I have a question about that. Will it enable us to, or will Amplify to have like Zoom meetings? You know, in case someone wanted to Zoom in or anything, or it's kind of not meant for that, it's just meant for the school?
Well, I don't know about Zoom, I don't know about the, well, I do know that the three, what we asked is that the three, I'm able to project off the 3 screens like this at the same time. Now, whether or not we can do the Wi-Fi, yeah, I have to look at the specs, yeah.
Okay, I think we did the turn and talk, I guess we did continue with the turn and talk.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Madam President, board members, and staff, and yes. So tonight, we're going to cover several budget things. The first being our final budget amendment for the current school year, 22-23. The purpose of this is as things come up that don't necessarily need a budget amendment every month, we do one final one at the end of the fiscal year just to capture anything that might come up. And I'll be honest, I was a little heavy on the functions, and the reason why is because that's an audit point, is that you cannot be overspent in any function. And we are bringing the final budget amendment to the board probably about 3 weeks earlier than normal. So I just want to make sure that I capture anything that could happen. We still have not finished posting May's payroll, so there's a lot of estimates in there. But by no means are we going to just spend all that money. It's really just a cushion to make sure we do not get any kind of an audit finding. So child nutrition, they applied for and received a supply chain assistance grant in the amount of about $281,000. So we are increasing our revenues and the appropriations. Also, electricity has increased. You'll see that that's kind of a common theme between the different budgets. And so a net decrease to the food service fund balance of about $375,000. And again, if you'll remember, I want to say it was probably January, we brought to y'all where we were buying some cafeteria equipment because we were over the amount of fund balance we're allowed to have in child nutrition. We will probably bring that back. Again, we're probably going to be over a little bit, not to the extent we were, but we do anticipate being over, and we'll have to have a spend down plan with TDA on that as well. Okay, the general fund, some of the increases are our interest earnings. I know we've already talked about building that into our current year budget. Anticipating about a $2 million increase in interest. And then you're going to see a decrease of about $2.2 million, and that's where I feel like we're going to end up with our lower attendance rate than we had anticipated. So we won't see that exact amount till very 1st of September, but it will be reflected in our audit report. So we just wanted to go ahead and bring that to the forefront and have that out there. And I believe at the board performance planning meeting, we talked about moving the HVAC from ESSER to local in order to generate more indirect cost revenue to the district. Also, again, this is where I talked about the adjustments to the functions just to ensure that we're in compliant. So overall, it's a net decrease of fund balance of about 2.8. I do not believe it's going to be 2.8. That is being conservative and to make sure that we do not have an audit finding there. All right, here's the food service. Just what I had spoken to, this is just in table format. The same thing with the general fund. Again, what we had talked about is just in a table format. All right, board agenda item G is discussion of the adoption of the 23-24 official budget with the proposed tax rate. So budget highlights is currently the budget has a 3% overall pay increase built in. That's about 1.5 from the general fund. We have increased our support for fine arts. We have added a fine arts coordinator and also increased the fine arts budgets across the district managed campuses to the tune of about $500,000. And it is our final year for ESSER 3. So we're going to have about $10 million in ESSER 3 that we'll be paying from there. Final year for T-Class, which has about $1 million in salaries. We've talked about the utility increase. Also, you're still going to see a very strong effort to maintain our network commitments, to make sure that our network is secure. So we still have investments that we're doing there. Departments did reduce by 10%. And campuses this year were funded based on their anticipated enrollment, and they were reduced for their attendance rate. So we're receiving less funding due to attendance, so therefore we reduced their budgets as well. So this is the notice of to discuss the budget and the proposed tax rate that goes in the newspaper. We're required to publish this at least 10 days before the meeting to adopt the budget and proposed tax rate. And so at the meetings, we've talked about M&O rate of about 87 cents and an INS rate of about 19.5 cents. You're going to see in the notice that's not reflected there. The reason why, we can always go down, but we cannot go up without having to have another public meeting, post this lovely thing in the newspaper that costs $4,500 every time I have to post it. So we've always been encouraged to put the maximum rate out there, and then you can always come down and you do not have to have another public hearing and advertise again. So, and I've got highlighted in the yellow the maximum compressed tax rate. Again, Dr. Hernandez had alluded to that, especially with, I think it was House Bill 1 that is looking at property tax. So we'll wait to see what happens with that. And then once we have the certified values and the legislature has done what they need to do, we will come back with the actual tax rate. And you can see in the bottom portion is we talked about at the board performance meetings, the increase in the tax rates, the tax values. So you can see that very much there in the bottom section of how the values have increased. But you can also see in the middle section is that we have reduced our M&O expenses. We have reduced our debt service for a total of 2.01% decrease overall. And the debt service, you'll see a huge decrease there. That specifically goes back to when the board refunded the bonds and we defeased the bonds. We said it was going to be about $600,000 savings over the rest of the life of the bonds. And when we get to the debt service budget, you'll see that. So finally, we're seeing the results of the board's refunding. All right, this is the second part of the notice. And I want you to look here in kind of the center. Again, that is does not have any of the exemptions that the legislature is talking about. At one time, they were talking about adding another $40,000 to the homestead exemption. Again, does not have that there, but based on, I do have the $1.15, but when we come back at the $1.08, it's going to reduce the taxes by about $63 on that same home without any homestead exemption changes or anything from the legislature. All right, so here are our proposed budgets. This is the child nutrition budget. And I did compare it to as if the board budget amendment that has been presented will be approved. So it's a little bit of an increase, about $400,000 increase in revenues. Again, those are going to come from the federal portion, which is our breakfast and lunch program, as well as our CACFP, which is our supper program. And the appropriations, again, you're going to see a little bit of increase in utilities. No, actually, no. The difference is because the 22-23 has the 1.2 million that we did in December to purchase the freezers, the furniture, etc., that was part of the spin down program from TDA. That's why it is at the 9.3 million. All right, so we had talked about that our current budget includes about 1.8 more in interest earnings. Also, our SHARs and MAC, I think, are going to stay reasonably flat. Our indirect cost revenue continues to go higher. Our indirect cost rate that we just got certified for this next school year is a little over 15%. I believe probably 2 years ago it was probably at about 11%. So that's additional revenue to the district. And again, that's with ESSER funds. Once ESSER goes, those indirect costs will go revenues will go as well. And we're still continuing to make sure that we utilize ESSER and fund as many of the considerations as we can through ESSER. Proposed general fund budget. I believe at the board planning meeting, we had estimated about 85 million. When we got the template worked in, we came up with our state revenue about 58 million versus 59, and that's the amended amount. But you can also see our local revenue. Again, we also talked about that you're going to get the same amount of money, whether it comes from your local property taxes or it comes from the state. So you can see here that our local is picking up more of the burden than state. And I think we've seen that, the slide we had presented, that you see that in the last several years. Federal revenue, again, the increase is in 22-23, increase in indirect cost rates. So we're anticipating, we're going to present to you a revenue budget of $86.8 million versus a current year amended of $85.8. So right at $1 million more. This one's a little bit harder to read. It is the budget by function, which the board approves at the fund function level for child nutrition, general fund, and debt service. So these expenditures come out to about $95 million through the different functions. So right now we are looking at adopting an $8.1 million deficit budget. All right, our return on investment that we continue to do for our ESSER and expanding that to all things that we buy, no matter the fund source, we will continue to do that. And these are our 6 buckets that have been the focus the last couple of years. And our ESSER surveys show that these are the buckets that we want to continue to support with ESSER. All right, debt service or interest in sinking. This is what we use to pay our debt. We can only use this money to service debt, and only the debt that was approved, the bonds approved by the taxpayers. We can't use it to pay the maintenance tax note, even though that's a debt, but that's general fund. So you can see our revenues needs to be down about $600,000, and our expenditures are going to be down about $600,000. And again, this is a result of the refunding that the board approved, I want to say
2 years ago.
2 years.
Been about 2 years.
Yeah, about 2 years ago. So we're finally seeing the benefit of that. All right, so our proposed tax rates, right now we're proposing the same tax rate as we currently have, but once tax compression happens early August, I feel like we're going to be at general fund of about 87 cents. And I think debt service is going to come in at about 19.5 cents for a total tax rate of $1.686 versus the $1.15 that we have currently. All right, any questions, discussions? Yes, sir.
Do you know what the difference is in the overall versus the $1.06 versus the $1.15? Is that $2 million?
I can calculate it. I don't know the difference off the top of my head, but I'd be more than happy to calculate it. But I'm also limited to what tax rate I can adopt.
What does that mean?
Well, with the maximum compressed rate, the very end of July, after your certified values come out, we all send in a form to TEA, and they run their magic, and they tell us the maximum rate that we can adopt. In preliminary numbers, it looks like it's going to be the 87 cents.
I have another question. For the salary increases, is that for all of our employees or just teachers?
That's general fund, and that's all staff that are paid from the general fund.
All staff, including the senior leadership team?
Yes, if we're paid from general fund, which I believe we all are.
So is there a way for the veteran teachers to give them a 4% raise increase?
We could provide those numbers.
I have another question. That was my question. You said this year, the $10 million,
Something like that.
can't use that anymore? That's $10 million?
That's all we have left to go towards salaries. The other remaining dollars have already been spoken for with other items. And ESSER ends September of 2024. So we'll be wrapping ESSER up probably June of 2024. Yes, sir.
Any breakdown you have here for the budget proposal?
Yes, sir.
School, what are you
They are function 52, security. Function 52. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
52, yeah.
2.4 million? Yeah. Yes, sir. All right, anything else?
And then you said all the departments are gonna be like downgrading, reducing their staff to 10%, what does that mean?
I didn't say staff.
What is the 10%?
They reduced their budgets by 10%. So they might have cut supplies, they might have cut travel, they might have cut contracted service, they might have cut staff. Yes, sir. All right. All right, so my next item is just discussion of the tax levy payments to Bear Appraisal District. This is an annual item that we bring. Bear County Appraisal District does our assessing and our collecting of our taxpayers' payments. So this is just, and that's an estimate. I've not received anything from them at this point. Board agenda item I is the donations. We're asking the board to approve $1,600 in donations to our police department. $1,000 came from Indeco and $600 from New Star Logistics. Board agenda item J is discussion of a quarterly investment report. This is for the first quarter of the calendar year. And during the first quarter, we earned $796,000, nearly $800,000. So we're like in the 4%, 4 to 5%, and we are still looking on, working on doing some better things with our investments as well. We're slowly getting there. Board agenda item K, discussion of the cooperative purchasing contract renewals. There's a list there of all the co-ops that we participate in and the cost. Most do not have a fee. Again, this helps with our purchasing, especially when you have to get 3 quotes. You can go to the co-op and get your quotes there, and it speeds up purchasing and makes it faster for our staff. All right, this will be the last time the vendors for 22-23 that we think will exceed the $50,000 threshold. During next month's agenda, you will get the list for 23-24, and there will be some updates to that list as far as how did we procure them, what do we purchase from the vendor, trying to provide you a little bit more information. So we're currently working on that. And this item is the team finished doing an RFP, a request for proposal for integrated pest management, and the results from that we would like to award, ask the board to award that contract to Buchanan Pest Management. And I believe in your board update you had the tabulation, the cost, and they were by far the most reasonable for their monthly service. So we're going to ask you to approve them. Monthly tax collection, that's a recurring informational item that you have. Collections are up compared to the same period last year. Monthly financial statements through April. You can review as an information item. All right, any questions? Yes, sir.
For the vendor, it's just specified by name. Do you know what they
I didn't, what was the vendor name?
It's just a name, Jose Ibarra, but it's not like a company.
They're, I believe they do math enrichment, I believe, contracted service.
How long is he consulting with us? Not next year, no, last year. But this is how much
That's an estimate of what we think we'll spend.
And then for the donations, the Indigo, I think that's like a furniture company, so they just gave the police department.
Yes, sir.
That's it.
All right, I will turn it over to Ms. Trevino.
All right. All right. Good evening, President Castillo, board members, Dr. Hernandez, SLT members. So, as part of my items, I have item P, which is our monthly auxiliary. This is a recurring item. These are information items that you get on individuals, the monthly auxiliary and paraprofessional.
Again, this is a recurring item. Then we have item Q, which is our monthly, also recurring item. It's a report that you get on individuals and professionals. Item R, this is going to be compensation. This is part of the budget that Ms. Melanie just went over. Just wanted to make sure that we were able to go in and dive a little bit deeper on the compensation. I have a few items, just reviewing what we approved last year, thanks to you board members, and then what we're proposing to make any changes for compensation for this year. So to review what we had last year, and just to let you know for the upcoming year, we are looking to make an adjustment to the starting teacher salary, getting it to 58.5. Of course, this is a new placement, right, for new employees coming in. For current teachers right now, as you saw, the proposal currently on the table is 3%, and that is from their actual salaries. It's their actual, not from the midpoint. So I want to make sure. In the past, we have always, when we've made a recommendation, it was from the midpoint. So here to make sure that we are being cognizant of those that have stayed with us, the longevity of those individuals who stay here, they would get 3% from their actual salary, not so much from the midpoint. This is for our teachers in the teacher category. Okay, then we have the paraprofessionals, auxiliary, and administrators. All other individuals will be getting 3% from the midpoint. Only the teachers will be getting it for their actual, so we can make sure, looking at our recruitment and making sure that we can retain, our good teachers, we want to make sure that we keep that. And so taking that into consideration, just want to make sure we know that it is 3% from their actual salary. Then we have the teacher sign-on bonus that was really instrumental to helping us recruit last year. We did, thank you board for approving this last month. We did make another recommendation for teacher sign-on bonus for this coming school year. So that is also on the table. We have over the ratio stipend. That was a benefit. We feel when we looked at the data to make sure that our teachers and our students, or teachers were compensated and our students were being serviced by highly qualified staff members. But if we were not able to fill the position, and the teachers wanted to keep the students, if they were over the ratio, we provided a small stipend for them. So this is a benefit, I think, all around, academically for our students and of course for our teachers as well. Then the dual credit stipend, that was something that was approved last year. We made an adjustment. That is something we want to keep right now, that we make sure that we are increasing our dual credit participation and that our students are benefiting both. It's benefit to our students as far as getting some college credit, and then also a benefit to our teachers, making sure that we can go out there and hire those highly qualified dual credit teachers, because it is additional requirements, right, to teach dual credit. We want to make sure that we're compensating and we're able to recruit. So again, that is an item that we want to keep in our compensation plan. The perfect attendance, when we looked at it, I know I brought the data to a performance meeting. As we looked at the data from last year to this year, I believe it was in March when we looked at the data, there wasn't much benefit there. I believe last year, when I looked at the time frame, we had about 317 staff members that had perfect attendance. When I pulled it for this year, it was about 313. So that wasn't good data to show that we want to continue to keep this perfect attendance. Instead, we want to just embed that money back in if we can, help with the salary increase. So that is one that we're going to recommend that we don't bring back for next year. So that's why you see the extra on that slide. The buyback program, that is something that we'll probably get a little bit more data after the end of this year, so we can give you some more information on that. For now, we want to keep it in our compensation plan so we can see what the benefits are for those individuals that are retiring from the district and being able to use some of their days that they've had incorporated or have, accumulated. Longevity stipend. This was something that we wanted to be respectful of some individuals who came to Dr. Hernandez and asked to make sure that we were being respectful of those individuals that have stayed in the district. So when we thought about what we could do with the longevity stipend, then we thought giving them a little bit more money for being in the district, so those that were here received a little bit more pay when it came to a one-time stipend. This right now is really hard to determine if we want to bring it back, but we're really looking at incorporating it into those raises, as we mentioned, for those teachers that have been here a little bit longer, making sure that they get compensated accordingly and they get a little bit more than those new teachers, so we can make sure that we keep our better teachers. So right now it's really hard to say, so we're going to keep it on there for now. We will probably be coming to you. Again, as Dr. Hernandez has mentioned, the compensation plan will probably be bringing to you a couple of times throughout the year as we get a little bit more information from our legislative session or more data that we're getting. If we see higher need areas that we need to target, we'll definitely bring some information and some data to make some final recommendations or additional recommendations and addendum to the compensation. Hard to fill positions, those were last year. We considered those for bilingual. We knew we were struggling to get bilingual teachers, so we increased that stipend. We really want to make sure that we can keep that there. That really helped us. We were able to fill out our bilingual positions. And then, of course, these were items, again, that we brought to you last year that we really want to keep. The only one right now that we can say that we feel really confident that we want to bring back is our perfect attendance. Next for this year, one of the big changes that we're looking to make, or adjustments that we're looking to make, is as we compared, looking back a couple of years, we were really struggling to get our subs to come in and fill some of these subs, some vacancies that we had, and also some need. When we were pulling our teachers, we were not able to get subs, so we were actually having to pull teachers from their conferences, and we really didn't want to do that. So at the time, we thought, well, we need to increase our rates so that we can make sure we can get the individuals here. Since then, we have higher fill rates. That was really a good opportunity for us and the campuses. But now as we're looking at it, trying to see what we can do, trying to make some adjustments, we're looking at making an adjustment to the daily rate for our staff members and our subs. We were paying, all of those are about $10 less than what we were paying this current year. So we're making the recommendation to drop it by $10 on the teacher level. Then we're also looking to make an adjustment because our current compensation, we don't differentiate. If you're there to sub for a clerical position or you're there to sub for a teacher, the rate is exactly the same. So we want to make sure that we're emphasizing the importance of having someone in the classroom. So we want to differentiate too, and pay the ones that are coming in to substitute for a teacher are going to get paid a little bit more than those that are coming into service either in office or for an assistant, right, instructional assistant. So this is the proposed recommendation would be option B, and it's about a cost savings when we pulled the data was going to be about a little under $200,000. We're really being very strategic about when we're pulling teachers out of the classroom, one, because we want to make sure that we're protecting academic time, and two, making sure that we're really utilizing the substitutes as we need. So those are my items that we're looking for consideration at this time for compensation, because as I mentioned, we may be coming to you a couple of times throughout the year. So this time I think it's, see if you have some time for discussion or if there's any questions. Yes, sir.
For the compensation, I was seeing like the 3% for like paraprofessionals and auxiliary, and like 3% would be like of their like hourly wage, right?
It's 3% from the midpoint. So depending on the pay grade that they're at, we'll look at the midpoint, it's 3% from the midpoint.
Like that's really low, like just 3% like for like an aide versus like a 3% of what a director would be. So like, is there a way to like increase the 3% for the paraprofessionals?
I know we looked at proposals, we can, I know Ms. Bentley's going to be looking at 4%, that she said we could bring back. We could bring back a couple different scenarios to look at different amounts that we can. Trying to consider where the budget would allow us some additional funds to make sure we can increase that.
Especially for the veteran teachers, they were asking for a 4% increase. I also wanted to I was wondering if we can have a draft of the compensation plan, like the one we have for last year, because I was actually doing my research on most of these, but I was looking at the fine arts compensation plans, like for a band director, theater arts director, and I was comparing them to other districts, and we're really low, our stipends for the fine arts. So I was wondering if we can also look in how we can increase that.
Okay, sure. And Mr. Lugo, our fine arts coordinator, is actually doing the same. He's coordinating. I did look into the TASB. We have a TASB model that we can go in and look at comparison. So Mr. Lugo is looking at that and bringing forward a recommendation. A lot of times what we see is the stipends, and they could be higher, but they're probably also servicing larger enrollment school districts. So when we try to look at it, that's one of the areas that we're looking at is how many students are being serviced, what type of programs, what type of services are being offered. So thank you for that, but yes, we are looking at the fine arts program. Yes, sir.
I was really comparing that to an athletic stipend, and the athletic stipend is really large. For a fine arts teacher, it's not that big. And if athletic teacher can like coach multiple sports in little small seasons, that's a lot of money. When it's like fine arts teachers teaching for the whole year, their stipend's not that much. That's really unimportant.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And I'll have Mr. Lugo also look at that. He was a previous band director, so I think he'll bring us good insight on that, that information for that honor, so thank you for that. Any other questions? No? All right, thank you. I believe it's Mr. Ramos.
Good evening, everyone. Today I would like to present to you two items from the Technology Department for the 2023-2024 school year. If you'll recall, just as we went into the pandemic, a lot of school districts were distributing devices to students as fast as they could so that they had them when they were at home. The one thing that was sometimes missed, because I was doing this myself, is that connectivity piece. While they had a device, did they have the ability to connect to and access those digital resources? And that's an important piece of history for us to remember as we come into these two items. When we come into the summer of 2021, the district went into a joint use agreement with the city of San Antonio to create a cellular network that could provide internet using our district network for our homes who don't have internet and for our students who can then access learning resources. What we did was we planned out in the city of San Antonio, had engineers come in from Motorola. They put together towers and hardware, connected it to our network to provide that backbone. And installed this at central locations and then also for 12 schools, and 12 schools as well. And that covered an area of the district with this cellular service that can be accessed via these cradle point devices that get installed in the house. In addition to that, the city's network did not cover a portion of the district. And so the district embarked itself on putting a similar network together, cellular network together, at 4 locations in the district. And with the city's part of this, year 2, according to the contract, the district takes over the licensing fee for 1,600 cradle point devices. And we'll get to the city one because you guys are looking at this one. The city, starting in year 2, those cradle point devices, for 1,600 of them, is $144,000 for the licensing fee on those. And that starts year 2. And if you'll look at the documents that I put in there, I believe you'll see that this will continue to year 2 and 3 and 4 as well, year 3 and 4 as well. For the local cellular network, we have similar licensing involved, but then we also have some additional services because we're actually having someone install for the city and for the one that the district does. The city isn't providing installation, they're only providing maintenance on the equipment. In addition, we have, of the city equipment, we have the need to have some network hours with the managed services department to come in and help us organize some of the work on the city equipment as it needs to be serviced as well. So the total for the private network enterprise is $159,880, and the city licensing is $144,000. Any questions? Yes, sir.
In our board book, we received like the projected coverage map, and it's like 11 sites, but how does this relate to the topic that we were discussing?
The coverage map? The coverage map shows all of the houses within these areas that you're looking at would have coverage to a tower of some kind. So if they're outside of that coverage map, it's not that they necessarily won't have coverage, but the coverage would be not as good. So the closer you are to the tower, the better your coverage is going to be.
So like around Loma Park, where there's like no coverage, it would be pretty bad, right?
Well, Loma Park, I believe this is the one for the city. Yeah, there's two different ones. And Loma Park is where we installed the local one, private network enterprise, the district's local cellular network to cover that area. So that we came in and filled in the gaps to the best of our ability.
Right.
For this, students will have access to wireless communications?
Yeah, it will act like, I guess, a spectrum in your home. We have cradle points that you install on site, and it'll give them access to the internet. It is filtered internet, so it's the same filtering that we have in district. Like inappropriate material you won't be able to get on the home.
Is this different than a hotspot?
Yeah, it's stronger than a hotspot, and it can cover. Where a hotspot that can generally deploy for students is really, you're not going to really be able to have more than 2 people connected to that hotspot and still be able to get that media. Some of our learning resources are media rich oftentimes. This is going to be much better than that for the whole house. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Approximately how many households are you providing the service for?
Right now, we have 12 households that have equipment installed in them from the local, the one that the district owns. We haven't yet deployed from the city's equipment. We're going to be starting that in August. One thing, the piece of data that we're collecting right now is how many of our students do not have access to internet at home. And then we're going to take a proactive approach to making phone calls and contacts with them and offering this service. Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let's deal with this. So what are the next steps? There's a lot of information. Ms. Bentley just told you we're going to propose an $8.9 million deficit budget, and we're also proposing a raise in the same rate. Right, what we know is that there's a lot of pending information. Dr. Hernandez, I'm not going to read this legislative action, but a lot of the things that are currently on the governor's desk for signature are unfunded mandates. That's what we know today. Anything that would have provided any monies for teacher raises has not been signed, and it does not look like there's been any traction. They're pretty much dead in the water. So we already know that we also already signed, we need panic alert devices in all classrooms. So some of those projects, last month, we introduced $24 million of needs that we have in the district for infrastructure. That includes technology, that includes updates to the building, just to keep the HVAC going. So all of those things are competing dollars, but we're keeping a very good pulse on what's happening here with the legislative session and also what we can do with the dollars that we have. So we've talked about the concept of rethink, redesign, recommit throughout this whole process that we started back in February. So what that means is we're having meetings about staffing. It's not any news. We've talked about this for a while. We're talking about staffing ratios and what those look like, not just at the campuses, but the central office. The staffing allocations, what does that look like? Scrutinizing every position. Everything's on the table, folks. When we bring back positions, what do they look like? Can we collapse duties? What does that look like moving forward? The only thing that's sacred is the 22-to-1 teachers in the classroom. Everything else is subject to review and approval by committee and or the superintendent's office and or the board, depending on the level of the position. So we're evaluating our needs and supports. Ms. Bentley alluded to a 10% decrease for departments. I want to be really frank about those things. The net effect is really that 3% because we have things like utilities and day-to-day things that we can't help that are increasing as well. So that net decrease turns out to be more like a 3%. So I want to be very upfront about those conversations. And we're evaluating initiatives. We have about 2 years to get right side up with the budget. Building our budget was very intentional. We knew that when we had extra funds, we were going to have to come back and figure out what we're going to do. We have a lot of mandates like HB 45, 45. They're not going away. Part of the legislative action, we got a little bit of relief. We needed a 1-to-3 ratio for HB 45, 45, the servicing that the tutorials provide. We got relief. We now get a 1-to-4 ratio. So yeah, it is comical. Sorry, I should have put that in. Nonetheless, here's what it looks like. That first bullet, that's what Ms. Bentley just introduced in a nutshell. We have $95 million in expenses, pretty similar to what we have today. And we have about $86.8 million that we anticipate in revenue. We do have about $5.7 million in vacancies, and that's our target, folks. As we move forward, that is our target. Our target is not to come in and destroy everything that we work towards. It's really to evaluate those vacancies to see where we can, through attrition, work through those numbers and get as close to budget neutral as we can over the next few years. We also have to worry about T-class. We have about $1 million in, again, HB 45 tutorials that we pay from there. It's mainly in staff and or extra duties. So we need to figure out over this next year, what are we going to do and how are we going to restructure to make sure we continue to provide those services. And out of that $11.3 million in the ESSER 3, Ms. Bentley just said, we found about $10 million tied to positions that the state told us we needed so we can continue to provide services for the students of our district. And during the funding cliff now, we need to figure out how we're going to absorb these back into the budget moving to the next 2 years. We do have a very healthy fund balance, but the fund balance can get us through about a year or two, which is what we have planned. And then after that, we're really going to have to target what we do. But we've got this year and the subsequent year to make sure that we make shifts and changes in the right direction. With that, I'm going to close Dr. Hernandez. Yes, sir.
All right, guys, thank you. First of all, thank you to everybody on the team that presented this evening. I say that because it's taken a lot of work for our folks to do this and involved a lot of people, even people who aren't sitting in the room right now. We've added additional folks to our staffing committees to make sure that we are looking at everything from every side. I know I heard Mr. Ryu mention Mr. Lugo, Mary Baker, other folks that don't necessarily come to SLT, but that are involved in these conversations. Because anytime you talk about people's livelihood, you should give that a lot of consideration. Because these are people who have people who they're responsible for someone. And so we have to remember those things. But the reality too is that this body is also responsible. And so we cannot continue to overlook the fact that we are going to have to make up for quite a bit of money. And so we started talking a few years ago about the possibility of school closures. And so I still put that out there because it is something that we're going to have to come to terms with in the next school year. We cannot delay that anymore. And I don't want anybody to run for the hills yet. I'm not proposing we close down an exorbitant amount of schools, but it is something that we need to start looking at. And we're going to execute on. To include to the point that I have been meeting with the board officers about how we work on committee assignments next year. Board members, you each bring a level of expertise for your different areas. We're going to ask you to sit on some of these committees, and we're also going to establish folks from the outside in terms of our constituency and other folks from around Edgewood that can help us make this decision, but we're going to make this decision. And so when Ms. Martinez mentioned we have a little over $5 million in empty positions or vacant positions, these are positions where no one's sitting in those positions. So we're not going to have to hurt anybody that's in position right now. But again, as people are leaving naturally, we're going to put into question, why do we need that? And so there's a lot of work to be done moving forward. Some of you were here years back when something similar happened. We're going to leverage that experience. We are leveraging the experience of the districts around us who have already taken the first plunge, and others that are going to start. You're going to start hearing about other school districts too, ones you may not even be thinking about that have the potential to do that. So we're going to go into this collectively. We're going to come out on the other side making the best decisions possible for the long run for Edgewood. And so, Madam President, I'm going to leave that there. There'll be more information coming out through board updates, but yes.
I'm sorry, can you go back a couple
Sure.
slides?
One more time.
To the bill, House bill?
That one.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're going to take a picture.
Yeah, because I don't want to get into it.
Okay. Okay, any other questions before I turn it over to Madam President? Okay, Madam President, the floor is back up to you.
Thank you, sir. You know, I wish, and I'm sure all of us wish, that we could double our teachers and all of the employees' salaries, but I hope that we're still the 11th poorest district in the nation. Are we still?
We're still one of the
I know we did a lot of research, and
most
we're
challenged.
the 11th poorest district in the nation, so We were already before all these cuts and all this, but, we're gonna make it. Let's see what happens. So, the time is now.
Madam President,
Yes, sir.
we didn't go over agenda item U.
Yeah, I did.
Yes, sir.
I went,
We did.
yeah, I went over it in my superintendent's report. It's the one that has the picture of Olga, Amelia, and myself.
I just had a comment for that agenda item.
Okay?
Where it says that I abstain from is that at the end that I abstain from voting?
Yes?
But I want to say, in your closed session and item A, it says discussion regarding board members' duties and responsibilities. But I was like doing some research after the outcome of that agenda item, and I don't believe the president or the superintendent followed the protocol in the board operating procedures. In reality, it should have read as evaluation of an individual board member's performance in section 28. So I don't believe that follows the Texas Open Meetings Act. So I was wondering what we can do, if we can talk to our attorney.
So duly noted, that was the language that was afforded to us by our attorney, as well as the information that was given to us in real time at the board meeting, when it's my understanding, is that quite honestly was not looking that way. You did not make a motion, so that was the information we were asked to submit by our school district attorney. So that's the way it's going to stand. I can bring that up with our attorney in our next meeting, but that is an executive session item, so we'll not continue this conversation on it, because that's an executive session item. But I appreciate your honesty.
How do you make a motion without talking to the president and reading your board operating procedures? Makes no sense.
Thank you. Duly noted. We'll go ahead and follow that up with the attorney, and I appreciate you having to put that out there, but I'm not going to discuss the executive session item. Thank you.
Thank you. The time is 6:37. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those against, raise your hand and say nay. Motion passes. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you